The smallest crime in the Imperium is measured not by its impact, but by the burden it places upon the machine of justice that must crush it. On the lower hive of Tertius Magna, in the shadow of towering manufactorums that belch promethium smoke into the recycled air, a young man named Cale Moran extends his hand toward a baker's stall. The bread is 3 days old, hard as rockcrete, marked with the imperial aquila, and priced at 2 weeks' wages for a factory laborer. Cale's fingers close around the loaf. In that moment, he becomes more than a hungry citizen of the Imperium. He becomes a problem that must be solved. The servo skull hovering near the market ceiling registers the theft through its augmented optics. Its voxcaster chirps a binary code to the nearest Arbeits monitoring station, where a duty officer's cogitator screen flickers with new data. Crime classification, petty theft. Perpetrator identified through facial recognition, location logged, sentence parameters loading. What follows is not justice as the ancient Terran philosophers might have understood it. It is the grinding mechanical precision of imperial law, a system so vast and complex that individual human suffering becomes merely another data point in ledgers that stretch across entire sectors. The Adeptus Arbeits do not concern themselves with motivation, circumstance, or mercy. They concern themselves with efficiency, deterrence, and the mathematical certainty that every transgression against imperial law must be answered with overwhelming force. In the 38 millennia since the Emperor first walked among men, the Imperium has refined the art of punishment into something that transcends mere cruelty. It has become theology. Every broken bone, every severed limb, every mind hollowed out by psycho-conditioning serves not just to penalize the criminal, but to reinforce the fundamental truth that binds humanity together across a million worlds, that individual will must be subordinated to imperial order, no matter the cost. The theft of a single loaf of bread sets in motion a cascade of events that will follow Cale Moran through interrogation chambers and penitentiary cells, through surgical suites where flesh is separated from bone with clinical precision, and finally into the labyrinthine depths of the Imperium's vast correctional apparatus. His journey will reveal the mechanisms by which the most powerful civilization in human history maintains its grip on a species that spans the galaxy, one broken soul at a time. Kyle does not yet know that his hunger has doomed him. He clutches the stolen bread and tries to disappear into the crowd, unaware that 17 different surveillance systems have already tagged him for arrest. Above him, in the spires where the planetary nobility dwell, his fate is being decided by algorithms older than most star systems, programs that weigh his life against statistical models of recidivism, productivity loss, and social stability. The Adeptus Arbetes judge does not see Cale's face when she reviews his case file later that morning. She sees only data: male, age 23, unemployed for 4 months following the closure of a textile mill, no prior arrests but 3 citations for loitering near food distribution centers. The system recommends corporal punishment with optional enhancement to indentured servitude. The judge's approval stamp bears the imperial aquila. The ink is still wet when the enforcement squads receive their orders. In the Imperium of man, crime is not a social problem to be solved through rehabilitation or community intervention. It is a cancer to be cut out with the surgical precision of those who have spent 40,000 years perfecting the art of human control. Every theft, every act of sedition, every moment of doubt or questioning becomes another opportunity to demonstrate the terrible mathematics of imperial justice, that the cost of transgression will always exceed any possible benefit, that resistance leads only to suffering, and that the Emperor's law extends into every corner of human existence with the inevitability of gravity itself. The bread in Cale's hands grows cold as he navigates the maze of shanties and industrial waste that form the outer districts of the lower hive. He does not know that his biometric data is being cross-referenced with employment records, residential databases, and genetic samples collected during his mandatory birth registration 23 years ago. He does not know that a team of Arbeits shock troops is already moving through the district, their power mauls charged and their riot shields locked in position. What Kale knows is hunger. What he will learn is that in the Imperium of man, even hunger must bow before the absolute authority of law, and that mercy is a luxury reserved for those who can afford to purchase it with unwavering loyalty to the throne. The servo skulls continue their endless patrol of the market district, their optical sensors scanning for the next transgression, the next opportunity to feed data into the vast machinery of imperial justice. Below them, citizens move with the careful precision of those who understand that every action is observed, every choice recorded, every moment of life subject to evaluation by systems beyond their comprehension. In the Adeptus Arbites fortress that dominates the hive's judicial sector, processing chambers hum with the constant activity of criminals being sorted, catalogued, and prepared for punishment. The walls bear inscriptions in Gothic script. Justice is the Emperor's will made manifest. Order through strength, compliance through fear. These are not empty slogans. They are operational principles that govern every aspect of how the Imperium responds to those who dare to place their individual needs above the collective good. K.L. Moran's story is just beginning, but it follows patterns established across countless worlds and repeated billions of times throughout Imperial history. His theft of bread will cascade through levels of bureaucracy and enforcement until it becomes something far larger than a hungry man taking food he could not afford. It will become a demonstration of imperial power, a lesson in the consequences of defiance, and ultimately a warning to others who might consider placing their survival above their obedience. The machine of justice does not sleep, does not rest, and does not forgive. It only processes, punishes, and perpetuates the endless cycle of control that keeps humanity bound together under the Emperor's law. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and even the smallest acts of desperation become battles in that war, fought not with lasers and chainswords, but with the systematic destruction of human will itself. Kale's fingers tighten around the stolen bread as he hears the first echo of marching boots in the distance. The sound grows closer with each passing second, carrying with it the weight of 40 millennia of human civilization refined into a single, terrible purpose: the absolute subordination of the individual to the state, enforced with a precision that would make the ancients weep. The hunt has begun. 3 hours after the theft, K.L. Moran discovers what it means to be truly seen by the Imperium. The shock troops arrive with the methodical precision of a surgical strike, their black carapace armor absorbing the dim light of the underhive's luminous strips. They do not announce themselves with proclamations or warnings. They simply appear at every exit from the residential block where Kale has taken shelter, their movements coordinated by vox beads that whisper tactical updates in the clipped Gothic of military efficiency. The first Arbites enforcer to reach Kale's hiding place does not ask questions. The Lex Imperialis provides no requirement for explanation or dialogue when dealing with confirmed criminals. The shock maul connects with Kale's ribs with enough force to lift him from his feet, the electrical discharge scrambling his nervous system and dropping him to the filthy hab-block floor in convulsions. The stolen bread falls from his hands, rolling across grime-stained rockcrete to rest against a drainage grate. What happens next reveals the true sophistication of Imperial law enforcement. Kale is not simply beaten or executed, though both options remain available depending on the severity of his classification. Instead, he becomes part of a system that has been refined through millennia of experience in controlling populations that span entire star systems. The Arbites do not see him as a person with circumstances, history, or potential for redemption. They see him as a unit of criminal behavior that must be processed according to established protocols. The neural collar they lock around his neck serves multiple functions beyond simple restraint. Its built-in Vox transmitter allows the Arbites to monitor not just his location, but his heart rate, stress levels, and neurological activity. The device can administer pain directly to his nervous system without leaving physical marks, making interrogation efficient and documentation clean. Most importantly, It marks him as property of the Adeptus Arbites, removing him from the general population and placing him under a separate legal framework where different rules apply. The transport vehicle that carries Kale toward the Arbite's fortress has no windows. Its interior is designed with the same functional brutality that characterizes all Imperial architecture, with metal benches bolted to the floor and restraint points every half-meter along the walls. Other prisoners sit in silence, their own neural collars glowing with status lights that indicate their processing stage. A young woman with tears streaming down her face bears the distinctive marks of a sedition charge. An older man missing 2 fingers shows signs of black market trading violations. Each represents a different path through the system, but all lead to the same destination. The Arbite's fortress itself defies easy description. Built into the hive's structural foundation, it extends both upward through multiple levels of administrative chambers and downward through layers of holding cells, interrogation suites, and punishment facilities. Its architecture serves as both practical workspace and psychological weapon, designed to overwhelm prisoners with the sheer scale of the system they have chosen to oppose. Gothic arches soar overhead, bearing carved reliefs of the Emperor's justice triumphant over various forms of criminal behavior. The message is clear. Individual transgression is insignificant when measured against the eternal authority of the throne. Kale's processing begins immediately upon arrival. Arbite's clerks, their faces hidden behind data visors that stream constant feeds of criminal statistics and legal precedents, record every aspect of his physical condition, genetic markers, and psychological profile. His clothes are incinerated, both to prevent contraband and to strip away any remaining connection to his previous identity. The grey prison uniform they provide bears his new designation, Criminal Processing Unit, 7749 Tertius. His name is now secondary to his function within the system. The interrogation that follows demonstrates the Imperium's understanding of human psychology refined to a science. The chamber where they take Kale has been designed to create maximum psychological pressure while leaving no physical evidence of coercion. The ceiling is too high to provide comfort, but too low to allow for true dignity. The lighting shifts constantly, preventing adaptation and maintaining stress. The chair where they seat him has been calculated to provide just enough discomfort to make concentration difficult without causing injury that might complicate later proceedings. Interrogator Primus Valdris Kine enters the chamber with the measured pace of someone who has performed this ritual thousands of times. Her uniform bears commendations for efficiency in criminal processing, and her augmetic left eye glows with the constant data stream that informs every decision she makes. She does not introduce herself. She does not explain what will happen. She simply begins the process of extracting every piece of information that might be relevant to Kale's case, his associations, and his potential value to the Imperium. The questions come in waves, each designed to probe different aspects of Kale's criminal behavior and social connections. Who taught him to steal? Where has he sold stolen goods before? Which other criminals does he associate with? The fact that this was his first theft, motivated by hunger rather than habitual criminality, is irrelevant to the process. The system operates on the assumption that every criminal act is connected to larger networks of illegal behavior, and the interrogation will continue until those connections are mapped or definitively ruled out. When Kale attempts to explain his circumstances, Interrogator Kane's response illuminates the philosophical foundations of imperial justice. She does not dispute that he was hungry or unemployed. She simply notes that millions of imperial citizens face identical hardships without resorting to theft, and that his decision to prioritize his individual needs over imperial law demonstrates a fundamental character flaw that must be corrected through appropriate punishment. The circumstances that led to his crime are not mitigating factors. They are evidence of his unsuitability for unsupervised existence within imperial society. The neural probe that follows removes any pretense of traditional interrogation. Kale's neural collar interfaces with machinery that reads his brain's electrical patterns, allowing the arbiters to verify his answers and explore memories he might prefer to keep private. The technology is not gentle. Each probe session leaves him with severe headaches and temporary memory gaps, but it provides the arbiters with complete confidence in their assessment of his criminal potential. What they discover through the neural probe reveals why the Imperium treats even petty crime with such overwhelming force. Kale's theft was not an isolated incident of desperation. It was the culmination of months of increasingly desperate thoughts about survival, including consideration of more serious crimes like armed robbery or black market trading. His mind harbored resentment against factory supervisors who had laid him off, fantasies about stealing from the wealthy hab blocks in the upper hive, and most damning of all, moments of doubt about whether the Emperor truly cared about the suffering of ordinary citizens. These thoughts, never acted upon and barely conscious, transform Kale's case from simple theft to potential sedition. The arbiters classification system recognizes no meaningful distinction between criminal thought and criminal action, operating on the principle that deviant behavior always begins with deviant thinking. Kale's neural patterns show the early stages of the psychological profile that eventually leads to rebellion, heresy, or worse. From the Imperium's perspective, his theft of bread was merely the first visible symptom of a much more serious disease. The case file that Interrogator Kine compiles during Kale's processing will serve as evidence not just of his individual guilt, but of broader social problems that require systematic intervention. His unemployment will trigger investigations into the factory's closure and its potential impact on local crime rates. His residential area will be marked for increased surveillance. His genetic profile will be flagged in reproductive databases to ensure that any offspring receive additional monitoring from birth. In the Imperium of Man, individual crimes create ripples that extend far beyond the criminal themselves. Every theft suggests inadequate security. Every act of sedition implies insufficient loyalty conditioning. Every moment of desperation reveals flaws in the social order that must be addressed through additional control measures. Kale's hunger has become evidence of systemic failure that requires systematic correction. The determination of his sentence involves calculations that reduce human suffering to mathematical precision. Arbiters' algorithms weigh his age, physical condition, genetic markers, and psychological profile against statistical models that predict recidivism rates, productivity potential, and social impact. The system considers not just what punishment will deter future crimes, but what punishment will provide the greatest benefit to imperial society through forced labor, medical experimentation, or psychological conditioning. The sentence, when it comes, reflects the Imperium's fundamental belief that individual human lives have value only insofar as they serve the greater good. Kale Moran will undergo corrective surgery to remove his left hand, both as punishment for theft and as a permanent identifier of his criminal status. Following surgical recovery, he will be indentured to a mining operation on the industrial moon of Sextus Tertius, where his labor will contribute to the Imperium's military production for a period of 15 years. The psychological conditioning that accompanies his sentence represents the true sophistication of imperial punishment. Kale's mind will be altered through a combination of chemical treatments, hypnotic conditioning, and neural implants that will make continued criminal behavior psychologically impossible. He will retain his memories and personality, but his capacity for defiance, resentment, or desperation will be surgically removed. When his conditioning is complete, he will be incapable of stealing again, not because he chooses obedience, but because disobedience will cause him physical pain. As Kale is led to the medical wing for his surgical punishment, he passes through corridors lined with other criminals at various stages of processing. Some bear the fresh wounds of recent surgery, others show signs of advanced psychological conditioning, their eyes holding the vacant contentment of those who have been chemically altered to find satisfaction in servitude. All wear the gray uniforms that mark them as imperial property, their individual identities dissolved into the vast machinery of correction and control. The medical facility where Kale's hand will be removed operates with the same ruthless efficiency that characterizes all aspects of imperial justice. The surgeons are not criminals themselves, but volunteers who see their work as a form of sacred service to the emperor. They perform amputations, lobotomies, and neural implantations with the devotion of priests conducting religious rituals, because in the context of imperial ideology, that is exactly what they are doing. The anesthesia they provide is calculated to be minimally sufficient, not for reasons of cruelty, but for reasons of efficiency. Excessive pain relief wastes resources and reduces the deterrent effect of punishment. Insufficient anesthesia risks complications that might prevent the criminal from fulfilling their labor obligations. The balance between suffering and functionality has been refined through thousands of years of experience, resulting in surgical procedures that inflict maximum psychological impact while preserving the criminal's capacity for useful work. Kale's surgery takes place in a chamber that processes dozens of similar cases each day. The walls are lined with medical equipment designed specifically for punitive procedures. Bone saws calibrated for clean amputations, neural probe arrays for brain modification, chemical dispensers for hormonal adjustment. Everything is designed for speed and volume, reflecting the reality that criminal punishment in the Imperium operates on an industrial scale. The loss of his hand transforms Kale's relationship with his own body in ways that extend far beyond mere physical disability. The surgical wound becomes a constant reminder of his transgression, a source of pain that will never fully heal, and a visible mark that identifies him as a criminal to every imperial citizen he encounters for the rest of his life. More importantly, it serves as a psychological anchor for the conditioning process that follows, linking his capacity for criminal thought to immediate physical discomfort. The transport ship that carries Kale and dozens of other condemned criminals to their assigned labor camp represents the final stage of his journey through the imperial justice system. The vessel's cargo holds have been converted into temporary holding areas where the newly sentenced are kept during the weeks-long journey to their destinations. The quarters are cramped, poorly ventilated, and designed with the assumption that many passengers will not survive the journey. Those who die in transit are simply processed as wastage, their bodies recycled through the ship's biological systems. During the journey, Kale undergoes the final phase of his psychological conditioning. Daily chemical injections alter his brain chemistry to increase docility and reduce aggressive impulses. Hypnotic sessions, conducted while he is restrained and forced to watch endless streams of imperial propaganda, reshape his cognitive patterns to eliminate thoughts of resistance or escape. By the time the ship reaches its destination, Kale's capacity for independent thought has been systematically degraded to the point where following orders becomes more psychologically comfortable than questioning them. The mining facility on Sextus Tertius, where Kale will spend the next 15 years, represents the practical culmination of imperial criminal justice. Built into the moon's surface, it combines industrial production with human punishment in ways that serve both functions simultaneously. The prisoners provide labor for critical military manufacturing, while their suffering serves as an ongoing demonstration of the consequences of defying imperial law. Kale's arrival at the facility is processed with the same mechanical efficiency that has characterized his entire journey through the system. His remaining personal effects are confiscated and destroyed. His criminal identification number is tattooed onto his forehead, ensuring that he can never conceal his status, even if he somehow manages to escape. Most importantly, the neural implant that was installed during his conditioning is activated, linking his nervous system directly to the facility's control network. The implant serves as both monitoring device and punishment tool, allowing facility overseers to track his location, monitor his productivity, and administer corrective pain when his performance falls below acceptable levels. The technology is sophisticated enough to distinguish between deliberate malingering and legitimate fatigue, ensuring that punishment is applied only when it will produce positive behavioral changes. What Kale discovers during his first days at the facility is that he has entered a society within a society, a closed system where different rules apply and individual survival depends on understanding hierarchies that have nothing to do with justice or fairness. Long-term prisoners, their minds hollowed out by years of chemical conditioning, serve as informal overseers who maintain order through a combination of ingrained servility and desperate attempts to curry favor with their captors. New arrivals who show signs of resistance are quickly identified and subjected to additional conditioning until their defiance is transformed into compliance. The work itself is designed to be both productive for the Imperium and destructive to the individual. Prisoners extract rare minerals used in the construction of Imperial vehicles and weapons, operating machinery that gradually damages their respiratory systems and exposes them to radiation that shortens their lifespans. The facility's medical staff monitor these effects carefully, not to prevent them but to ensure that each prisoner provides maximum economic value before their health deteriorates to the point where they become a liability. Kale's daily routine in the mining facility follows patterns established through millennia of Imperial experience in managing human livestock. He wakes before dawn to chemical stimulants pumped through the facility's air system, consumes a breakfast calculated to provide exactly enough nutrition to maintain work capacity, and reports to his assigned mining section, where he operates equipment that slowly destroys his body in service to the Imperium's military machine. The psychological effects of this routine are as carefully planned as the physical ones. The combination of exhausting labor, chemical conditioning, and constant surveillance creates a state of learned helplessness where resistance becomes literally unthinkable. Prisoners who have survived for several years often report that they cannot remember why they ever wanted anything other than the routine of mining, sleeping, and chemical modification that defines their existence. What began as a simple theft of bread has become something far more complex and terrible: the complete transformation of a human being into a tool of Imperial production. Kale Morin no longer exists as an individual with desires, fears, or dreams. He has become Criminal Processing Unit 7749 Tertius, a designation in a database that tracks his productivity, monitors his health, and calculates the optimal timing for his eventual disposal when his usefulness expires. The mining facility where he will spend the remainder of his shortened life processes thousands of similar cases each year, each representing a different path through the Imperial justice system, but all ending in the same place: complete subordination to the needs of the state, enforced through a combination of physical mutilation, chemical conditioning, and psychological destruction that leaves the individual intact enough to work, but broken enough to never again consider resistance. In the grim darkness of the far future, justice is not about restoration, rehabilitation, or even revenge. It is about the systematic transformation of human beings into resources that can be consumed in service to the Imperium's endless wars. Kale's story is remarkable only in its ordinariness, one thread in a tapestry of suffering that spans the galaxy and encompasses billions of similar cases. The bread he stole has long since rotted away, but the machinery it set in motion continues to operate with clockwork precision, processing new criminals, refining its methods, and perpetuating the system that keeps humanity bound together through shared terror of the consequences of individual choice. The industrial moon of Sextus Tertius orbits its parent world with the mathematical precision that governs all aspects of life in the Imperium, its surface scarred by centuries of mining operations that feed the endless hunger of Imperial war machines. From orbit, the mining facility where Kale now labors appears as a geometric wound in the moon's crust, surrounded by waste processing plants, prisoner transport landing pads, and the defensive installations that ensure no one leaves without authorization. Within the facility itself, the architecture speaks to the Imperium's mastery of human psychology, applied on an industrial scale. The corridors are too narrow to allow prisoners to walk side by side, preventing the formation of group bonds that might lead to collective resistance. The ceiling height varies unpredictably, creating a constant sense of spatial disorientation that makes planning difficult. Most importantly, every surface is designed to remind the prisoners of their status through subtle psychological cues. Floors that slope slightly downward to create unconscious feelings of descent, lighting that shifts imperceptibly to maintain low-level anxiety, and air circulation systems that carry the faint scent of chemical sterilization as a constant reminder of the facility's medical capabilities. Cale's first months in the facility reveal the true sophistication of